Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. Enjoy. I think to a lot of us, I don't think it felt this way in the Saints front office, but to a lot of us that are sitting there watching the Saints, it kind of felt like last year when the season ended, the Saints were at a bit of a crossroads. The Jameis Winston experiment or strategy had not worked. He was not going to be your starting quarterback. That's the most important position in football. And you had to decide one of two things. You were either going to spend a significant amount of money bringing in a free agent quarterback, or you were going to try to find one in the draft. Now, the best way I've seen teams in recent memory grow into elite level teams has been to find a quarterback in the draft and spend money around that cheap, good quarterback. Look at Philadelphia. Look at Cincinnati. Look at Kansas City in the early Mahomes years. Look at San Francisco. The teams that are great are teams that are young at quarterback, cheap at quarterback, and have paid a lot of people around them. Now, we just went through an era where the Bucs were spending, that Tampa was spending a bunch of money on Tom Brady, and the Saints were spending a bunch of money on Drew Brees, and the Packers spent a bunch of money on Aaron Rodgers, and the Steelers were paying a bunch of money for Ben Roethlisberger, and all those teams are really good too. So there's no one way to do this, but that's the way that most of the teams right now that are really good in the NFL have done this thing. And I thought that's where the Saints were headed. I thought the Saints would not be very good this year with Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston or whoever, and try to get a pick in the draft and start over at quarterback. But the Saints front office, I don't think ever saw it that way. Dennis Allen certainly never saw it that way. And that's not what happened. You went out and spent $150 million on a quarterback. Now, that's not breaking the bank for a quarterback. It sounds like $150 million. It's below the going rate for a great NFL quarterback. And you've got an average quarterback. And no matter what you want to say about the salary cap and the Saints manipulating it doesn't exist, they can do whatever they want and all that kind of stuff, spending $150 million on a quarterback as opposed to signing one for a cheap deal in the NFL draft does take away from the rest of your roster's money pool, okay? You can't do both. So the Saints went with, we're going to spend a lot of money on quarterback. And that doesn't mean that the Saints can't get really good with Derek Carr at quarterback. What it means is you're going to have to find cheap players elsewhere. And the draft is the first place you find cheap players. And you start to look at the draft being so important over the next couple of years while Derek Carr is in the life of this contract, because you've got to fill out your roster with drafted players that work out. And one of the guys that is catching my eye, and I think catching a lot of people's eyes, is the emergence of Howden. Jordan Howden was a fifth-round pick, guy you kind of found on the scrap heap, 146 overall. He's an old player. He's 23 years old as a first-year player because he's one of the COVID guys who was in school during COVID and played for 5 years. But he played 59 games for Minnesota. He started 49 college games. That's a ton of time to start. 240 tackles, 24 passes defended, 5.5 sacks, 4 interceptions, honorable mention, all Big Ten selection. And when we looked at this Saints secondary, especially safety, you're looking at Tyrann Mathieu, you're looking at Marcus May, two guys that you spent some money on that are older players that maybe phase out during this Derek Carr window. And is Jordan Howden good enough to assume a starting role and be a really good cheap player? That's certainly the hope. He was one of the best graded rookies last week in the absence of Marcus May. Made 4 tackles, just broke up 2 passes, including one that was picked off by Pete Werner. And I'm not here to tell you that I think Jordan Howden's headed the Pro Bowl. That's not the point of the segment. But as you start to look at places where they can spend very little money and bring in real key contributors, that may be a guy that you can look to because your safeties are aging. And in this day and age of NFL football, college football even for that matter, but in NFL football, you better be really good in the secondary because all the teams that are really good can throw it all over the place. Now, I know the Eagles run it great, and I know the 49ers run it great, But the really good teams have really good passing offenses, and you got to be able to run with those guys. I have no doubt that Marshawn Lattimore can do that. I think you've hit in the draft with Paulson Adebo and with Alontae Taylor. They look really, really good. So you're starting to fortify that secondary with some guys who aren't breaking the bank. And I think that's a very, very good thing when I look at the Saints and the salary cap and the situation that they're in. There's no question the Saints have to improve their roster moving forward. The roster as it's constituted right now, in my opinion, is not good enough to win a Super Bowl. But you're always chasing that. And if we've seen anything with this Saints management team, it's that they're always chasing that and they're never tearing it down. They're always trying to build. Some of the pieces are shoddy and may fall off, and you've got to find a new piece for that. But they're always trying to build. They're never scrapping the whole thing and figuring it out another way. That's not in their DNA. So while I'm looking at this Saints roster and I'm looking at this Saints team, I'm going, I don't think that's the team that's going to make a lot of noise in January. I'm also evaluating the program as a whole and going, the franchise as a whole, hey, what do we got that's good here? What can we build on? And maybe Jordan Howden is one of those guys. He's been active for 4 or 5 games. He's played in 2 of them and looks like a pretty athletic dude who at the very least is very experienced and older than your general 21-year-old 3-year out of college rookie. How much will we see him this week? I don't know. Marcus May's back. Tyrann Mathieu just had a pick 6 and is very much a starter at safety. You've got your corners figured out. So maybe you don't see him at all for the next couple of weeks unless somebody goes down. But I'm just looking. And Jordan Howden certainly caught my eye on a play that Pete Werner will get the credit for the interception. He made that play. It just fell in Werner's lap. He's the one who made the hit. He's the one who made the play. And I'd like to see a little bit more of that. He's not a guy that caught my eye too often in the preseason. But, hey, maybe Jordan Howden is a guy that is one of these hits late in the draft that the Saints are going to have while they dump a bunch of money into their quarterback. They dump a bunch of money into their star corner on the end. They've got significant money invested up front on the offensive line. Paying DeMario Davis. And you're paying those 2 safeties I just talked about. So, just a thought. We'll get you ready for Saints and Texans in the coming days. But just kind of looking at the Saints roster going, where can they tweak some things? Where can they move the money? Where can they make something happen? And hopefully you don't have to spend a bunch of money on a left tackle here moving forward. I was listening to T-Bob and Jacob here, and they were suggesting that the real weak point of the Saints team right now is at left tackle. That's a guy you invested a draft pick in. He's not breaking the bank, but that's one of your investments, and it's been uneven to this point. But he's still young. He's still in his first year playing. Hopefully that gets a little bit better. Saints and Texans coming up on Sunday. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.